Yes, I think there's a. I think it's it's kind of a freemium model. I think you get extra features if you. Yeah. Anyway, I'm always trying new different screencasting tools because this one's pretty good though. This isn't too bad. So yeah, if I can get this to, I want to figure out the YouTube API so that I can capture this and instead of putting it physically because that's a big file. If I can get up and get it to the Google Cloud directly, then I'm in good shape. So anyway, we'll see how this goes. Let me get the screen a little bit. That's better. Awesome. Okay, so the first thing, head to Blackboard, log in here, and we're going to pull down a zip archive. And this lesson is under Learning Modules. We are at Module 3, Interoperability. And so if you had charged ahead and downloaded interoperability earlier this morning or yesterday, please download a fresh copy because I've made a few key changes to the file because we're going to do just a few little different things which are really important. So download interoperability. If you're on Windows like I am, be sure, if you would, this is my document. Be sure to extract the zip. So right-click on that and make sure you extract extract all. That's great. You can probably get rid of the _ Mac OS 10. If you're on a Mac, you won't see it. If you're on Windows, you can delete that. Okay. And so promptly get rid of the zip archive if you would. So we just have the folder called interoperability. For some reason it doubles up, but that's okay. So in here we should have a CSS folder with a base CSS and an index template. Okay, that's what we've got. That's all we need. Next step. I'm going to want to put this up on a web server. So what we'll do is we'll use Azure, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a web app instance or a server instance for this class. So what we'll do is moving forward, we'll have you post. You'll have a dedicated app, and we'll just break that up in directories for different learning modules. And so you'll have a place to kind of call home. So go ahead and open up a tab and log into the portal.azure.com. And make sure you log in with your personal Microsoft ID, not your student account. That's not it. Okay, so in fundamentals last term, we should have had everyone connect to this. Yes? We all have access to Portal, right? You don't have it? Did you not? Do you have access to an Imagine account? You log into the Imagine? Excuse me. For today, instead of going through because it's a rather long and convoluted process, you can work locally and then maybe what we can do is maybe we can find a little bit of time that we can sit down and get you sorted out. But yeah, you'll want to have access to the portal. Okay, does anyone else not have access to Azure portal? If you don't, we'll get connected. We'll get you plugged in for sure. But we're going to need it this term. So log into your portal. Make sure up at the top right you have your Microsoft ID, your personal Microsoft ID. This has been a bit of a source of confusion because of the Microsoft Imagine accounts that you have subscribed to. You can actually log in here, but the way it works is you have to use your own ID and then associate that, subscribe to the college's Imagine program, which you are a part of, which we pay for you here, and then that gives you access to deploy Azure applications. Okay. So, assuming that that's great, what I want to do is go click on New, if you would, and we'll deploy a new web and mobile. We'll deploy a new web app. All of these should be grayed out, except for the one at the top when you go to web and mobile. Okay, here, perhaps what you could do is you could put some sort of name that might indicate yourself plus the course code or web UI design or something like that. So something that you'll remember as a URL for this particular course, COMP1054. So I'll put COMP1054 S. McCrindle, right? And that should be unique enough that you can have that URL. So it'll assign you a subdomain based on that. So it'll be whatever.azurewebsites.net. I think my account's a little older. I think most of you, your subscription drop-down should say Imagine. Yes. Does anyone here have a label that says DreamSpark? Yeah, yours says DreamSpark. Okay, that's okay. They're one and the same thing. Yeah. So resource group, you can use an existing one if you've already been in here. I just have a default resource group. Those are basically broader categories. So if you want to bundle a number of different applications that you're working on, maybe by your classes here, or if you're in a work environment, maybe by a department, maybe different departments within an organization might have different resources that are devoted to certain functions. That's how you use that. Leave the app plan service. It'll probably default to South Central US. And you don't need the application insights. If you want, you could pin it to your dashboard so that when you log into the portal, it's right there as a tile on the dashboard, so it's easy to just kind of go in and get the correct, make some changes to it, or check the connection credentials or whatever. We'll hit create, and it should deploy the app. It should take a few seconds. I've seen it take up to about 20 seconds, but it doesn't take too long. So hopefully, if everything's cool, you should get a green notification up here that your deployment has been successful. Cool. So then you should have an Essentials panel. So we can see here, there's the URL to your app right here. In my case, it's comp1054smccrindle.azurewebsites.net. So I'll use that URL on an ongoing moving forward for code in this class when we're pushing it up to the cloud or to the web. Yeah. So what we're going to do now is we'll get an FTP client. We'll use FTP. Maybe later on in the course, what we'll do is we'll move over to using sort of a code repository like Git, and we'll use maybe start looking at more modern ways of connecting and certainly or working in teams, whereby you can to some degree automate some of this process. That it's a little bit more manual. So we'll go to more here, and we can get the publish profile. So we can extract our FTP connection settings. And that will download a file here, which will be an XML file. Probably come down to your downloads folder called COMP10, whatever the name of your app is, .publish settings. Right, so that's a piece of XML with those credentials in it. Okay, let's open up, we'll just pull up FileZilla. Awesome. So we will, once you get the FileZilla window open, let's configure this. Let's add a, go to File, Site Manager. And we're going to punch in our FTP credentials for that app that we just deployed on Azure. So let's go and open up our code editor. We'll take a look at this crazy XML file that they give us. So I'm going to use Atom. You can use whatever code editor you want. Okay, so let's take a look at the published profile. File, open file. And this is in my downloads. So the file called whatever you called it, .publish settings, open that up. It'll be on one line, so we want to maybe change the view to wrap the page. I'll zoom it up for you. Crazy file. Okay, cool. So this is just XML. So what I'm looking for here, there's a published profile. There's the second tag. There's a published data tag and a published profile. There's one published profile tag, and then there's a second published profile tag, probably somewhere around halfway through the file, right? So I want the second. We're going to look at the second published profile tag here. So a number of things. First, I want the URL or so we're going to look at we need the address, the username, and the password. So first of all, the address here is the published URL, and we'll grab this right here. Grab that string. It should say waws prod sn1.ftp.azurewebsites.windows.net. So we don't need the trailing slash here. Copy that to your clipboard. We'll enter that into FileZilla. In FileZilla, in the Site Manager, so if you go to File, File, Site Manager, you create a new site, and you can call this COMP1054. And in the host, we'll paste this value here. You don't need the protocol, we just need that. Okay, so put that in there. Leave the port. We're going to leave file transfer protocol. We'll use explicit FTP over TLS. Let's leave that if we can. And we'll have to go to plain old FTP if it doesn't work. We'll change the login type to normal, where we add our username. So your username should be this here. You'll need this whole string. So copy that. in the username attribute. And the password is the user PWD. So grab this. Make sure you don't grab the quotes. And go ahead and try and connect. It may complain about it doesn't know the site certificate for security, the security certificate. I'll trust this in the future sessions. That's okay. And do I connect? No, I could not connect. All right. So we'll go back to File, Site Manager. And I'll change the encryption. We may not be able to encrypt. We'll use only plain FTP. Not ideal, and in a production environment, I mean, we're just using, this is just a simple sandbox, but really, you do want to secure this with some sort of encryption, either with SSL with this, or SSH. So we'll use that. That'll get us connected. Using a code repository like Git will kind of sidestep some of these challenges. And I will have a procedure for you using Git and Azure in the next few weeks. Okay, so then we'll use something smart like that. So if you do that, then you should be able to connect. You should see remote site / So there's your root mount point, right? That's the application root on that server. So now, of course, you want to have your stuff over here on the left for the application and the server stuff on the right. So let's go in and set that up. See if we'll go into File, Site Manager. And we'll go into the next, for this site, we'll go into the advanced settings, and we'll change the default local directory. So you'll point on this to where you've got this. It's just on my desktop. I don't use this machine, but maybe you want to put the default directory. Maybe you want to create a directory for COMP1054 Azure to put all your files. That's up to you. So I'll put this, I'll select this one here, interoperability. Did yours double up? Probably on Mac it didn't. On Windows, you might have a double folder, one called interoperability and then another one. Did that happen? Windows folks? No, it didn't? It didn't double up? Yours did? Yeah, so there's something, it's the way I'm compressing the files, doing something funny there. So I'll select the one a little deeper, and that's good. And the remote directory, if you want, you could, so for example, right here, we could actually drill into the site and go into the www root directory. So we could do this. And then we don't have to navigate through that. So we could. Now I'm not sure if you need the trailing slash or the preceding slash. I'll connect and see. So that should say site /www root. So that on the web application, if you want public to access anything on that server on Azure, it has to be in the www root. Let's see for. And there we go. Yeah, so that's fine. So now we're in the www root. There's my stuff over here. Actually, I want to have the interoperability here as a folder off the www root. So what I'll do is I'll go back to my file, my site manager, and I'll go to the advanced, and I'll actually change the default directory. I'll select the one above the interoperability folder. Yeah, there we go. So now I should have interoperability as the folder, and inside that we'll have my CSS folder and my index. And then over here should just have be the hosting start file, which we can blow away. Okay. So now we're set up to move this, and this is important because I'm going to want you to take a look at this, the work that we're doing here on your phone. Okay, that's the primary reason why I want to do that. We can simulate it, but I want to do the real thing.
So you have the interoperability and then the one inside of it. Are you targeting the one?
I'm targeting the top level one as the, so when we connect here, because I want to see this. So for example, so now I'll publish this. I'll show you how this works. So I'll publish this. So I'll upload this folder, interoperability. So now on the server, you should have site www.root interoperability, and then we should have our folders on the remote server. Okay, so that means that in order to access this, you'll have to type in this COMP1054 scottmccrindle.azurewebsites.net. That points to www.root/interoperability, and then the index file within it, which is here. So to check and see that worked properly, right? There's the URL. I can click on that. I can open that in a new tab, right? And then if I want to see the interoperability, it's just a folder off that points to the www root. Then I can go interoperability / and that should pull up the index file, and you should see that. So in FileZilla, so I'll go back up one directory. I just right click and hit upload. Yeah. Use shortcut keys too, and you could navigate entirely using shortcut keys if you want. Or the top menu levels here, server, transfer, right? Cool. So we can do this today locally, but I want you to begin to get comfortable deploying this stuff to a server, right? It should be just, after a while, this is going to be old hat. It's just going to be common. And furthermore, you'll be using controlled, your code will be controlled in terms of versioning with something like Git, so that, if you make a mistake or you want to try something new, you can branch out, try something, and then merge it back to the master file collection. So we need to start thinking like developers, right? And controlling our code. So that's cool. So there we go. That's we're live. If you're not live, if it's not working for you, if one of those steps is not working, that's cool. We can just edit the files locally, and maybe on the break I'll circle back, see if we can get you connected. And if you just can't get it sorted out today, that's okay. We'll get you connected maybe this week, and obviously you can kind of go back through the screencast. If you're having trouble with your Imagine account, subscribing, connect with me or connect with CS Tech, CSTECH at computerstudies.ca, or sorry, CS Tech, sorry, at georgiacollege.ca, which is Greg Smith, which is our he's a great guy. He'll help you. Okay, so don't be stuck. Don't be kind of like, oh, I don't know, this isn't working for me. I give up. No, don't give up. Never give up. Ever. I watch a funny movie. Have you guys ever heard of Eddie the Eagle? Ever heard of that crazy guy? If you want a funny show, a funny little movie about never giving up, watch that. Eddie the Eagle. He's the ski jumper from Great Britain, where everybody said, "You'll never be a ski jumper. You'll kill yourself." He very nearly did, but he did. He eventually competed in the Olympics. Great movie. Don't give up. Okay, so let's go and take a look now at our code. So in right-click on in your on the menu, or sorry, the panel on the left, and let's add a project folder for today's work. Wherever you stash that. I'll just add the parent folder there. That's great. So interoperability, if I crack that open, should have a couple of things here. Cool. and open up the index.html. This isn't the one I want. Grr, this is the old one. Hang on a second.
Let me see here. We might need to blow this one away and replace it with a new one. Yes, this is the one I want. Okay. I apologize somehow. I published the wrong one. Press this one this time.
All right. Grr. Close that out. Remove that project folder. My bad. Let's go and get the fresh one here. You have to reload the page and Blackboard, and it should say this time interoperability 2. My apologies. Sometimes if I replace the zip with the same file name on Blackboard, it just leaves the old one up there. It's like, oh, you've already got that there. We're not going to bother uploading it for you. Thanks for that. Save that as, save that down. I'll blow away the old one here. Okay, make sure you extract. Extract all. You can get rid of the OS 10 folder. Cool. All right. So now I've re-downloaded this. Now I have to go back to FileZilla, set my local stuff up again. So go to File, Site Manager, and I need to go to Advanced, set my local directory. This time, Interoperability 2, the top level folder. Don't want the zip folder. I'll blow away this. I'll get rid of the zip. Don't need that. So in interoperability, so go into the server. In the server, blow away all this stuff. Delete the CSS index and delete the index page, and upload the new interoperability folder. Sorry for the confusion. Now we'll go into we'll add a new project folder to Atom here, and I'll show you what it should look like. Your index should look like this. If your file doesn't look like this, that's no good. You'll need to look like this. It should look like this in Atom. Okay. I'll give you just a few minutes to make sure you've got that up in your code editor. Again, if your Azure's not working, or if you've got you got hung up on one of the steps, not to worry. That'll be a nice to have today, not a need to have. What you need to have is you need to have this up on your screen. Okay. Let me know. I'll give you a couple seconds to make sure everyone's got that. Okay, step 1, validate and repair the HTML. There are a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 errors in the HTML file. Okay? Head over to validator.w3 and find and fix them all. Can you find all 6? Go. Do it. I gave you bad HTML. 6. Yep. There are 6 errors. Yes, the validator may report more errors because what happens if I break an element or break a tag, it may perpetuate other rendering problems. But there are a total of 6 errors to be fixed. See if you can find them all. I'll post them on Blackboard. I'll give you 5 minutes to find them. Got them all? Help your friends. I mean, you know it's broken. I mean, look at the code coloring's a mess, right? Got it? Anyone got a valid piece of HTML yet? You got valid green lights? Well done. You can punch in the URI for this. We don't need to, if you fix it and you upload the index, you can punch in the URI, the address, the URI. So for example, this one here, nasty. 17 errors, 6 warnings. What a train wreck. Errors found while checking this document as HTML 4.01 transitional. Weird. Not even the right doc type. All right, ready? Almost? Anyone else got green lights on the validator? Yep. Good. Well done. There's some dirty, there were some sneaky ones in there. Yeah, it was sneaky. I admit. I tried to get you. I'm gonna come up with even more ways, creative ways to break and trash code. So yeah, you better watch it. Any code that you get from me, immediately consider it to be suspect. Immediately.
We should not trust you anymore.
No. No, you should not. Personally, yes, but not, when I get in front of the code editor, no, you should be very nervous. I'm a sneaky guy. Not really.
Timer's already dry.
All right, ready to see the answers? Y'all good? You're frustrated? Heading up, bang your head into the screen? What the heck did you do? Okay, I'll show you what I did. I'll show you the bad stuff I did. Here's what I did. Doc type. I misspelt that. That's bad times. Right? That will throw the validator immediately into, it doesn't recognize that, so it defaults to like, I don't know what kind of doc type it is. Well, obviously it's thinking this is HTML4. That's no good, right? So I'll save that. So immediately save that, and then immediately check your code again against the validation service. Oops. I'll upload the file. Okay. So immediately when I do that, right, we get rid of that error regarding HTML4. So now it knows that we're talking HTML5. That's good. Now look, there are only 4 errors reported from 17. It's a big deal, right? Because I had HTML5 elements, and if it's checking them as HTML4, those HTML5 elements are a problem. They don't exist. So you got all kinds of problems, right? So that's make sure the doc type is fixed. Next thing, line 2, the lang attribute. I didn't quote the attribute value properly. That has to be there. It actually doesn't. In HTML5, you don't have to quote attribute values. You can use dirty old HTML4 sloppy syntax if you want. You actually don't. But I would encourage you to use XML style syntax, or at least some amount of rigor when you're using your code. You can write sloppy HTML, but it's not going to help you, and it's not going to help your team members, right? They'll get mad. It's not cool. Okay. That now I went down. I only fixed 2 things, and I went down from 17 problems down to 2, just like that. So repair the when you're validating, fix something, then go back and check it again, because a lot of these errors are false positives. Okay, that's cool. The next one, the next problem is the title element, line 5. Look at That's no good. Save that. Let's check it again. Oh, look at that. Weird. Now I fixed one thing, and now I've got 9 errors. Don't despair. It's not all bad. Okay, it's all right. You're getting close. Next thing, line 33. Ooh. So what's happening is, because this header isn't closed properly, the rest of the document is being evaluated as if it were a child element of the header element, because it's not closed. So of course you're going to get all kinds of crazy errors. So just fix that little typo I injected in there. Save the file. And there we go, back down to 4. Cool. Next here, error. No P element in scope, but P. Weird. Line 40. Is it line 40? It's close. There are problems in line 42, from 42 to 44. Scream down here. 42. I guess it should be line 43 and 44. Oops. This belongs here. So what happens is I've closed out the main after I've closed its parent. That's going to cause a problem. Put that back over there. I'll leave the line numbers. That should help a whole lot of stuff. Did I not check it? What have we got going on here? Oh. No P element in scope. Where did I break it? Line 40, line... On line 4, line 40. Sorry, yes. Really? Maybe I just made a mistake. Maybe that's just a real mistake. I don't even have it on my list. Yep. I just actually forgot to put a P there. That was a legitimate error. That makes there 7 errors, not 6. Cool. Okay, so now line 51. Saw an end tag after body had been closed. What? That's weird. Weird. So fix the HTML element, and that will solve 2 errors. And you should have green lights. Cool. So this is a class in CSS. I spent the first hour, right, obviously talking a little bit, with a little bit of lead-in, but we spent a lot of time just getting things prepared, making sure we're connected, making sure we've got our server up and running, our connection credentials, and we spent a fair bit of time making sure that our HTML is valid. Most CSS problems are HTML problems. That may sound really weird, but from experience, I'm telling you, most people's CSS issues are simply a piece of broken HTML. And it doesn't have to be a major problem. It doesn't have to be a heap of errors. One improperly closed HTML element will create all kinds of havoc with your CSS, right? And you'll be banging your head. Your CSS will be perfect. You'll be banging your head into the screen. But what is wrong with this? It's supposed to work. Yeah. Validate your HTML. It's probably your markup. Right? Cool. All right. So that's awesome. We have valid HTML. Now we're going to get into the fun stuff. We're talking about responsiveness, resets, and normalize. What the difference is, how it plays out. Then we're going to talk about Mobileye, normalizing zoom for responsiveness. Validating CSS, which we haven't done yet, right? And then a whole bunch of other interesting problems with IE and how we can fix that so we don't have to, write 3 or 4 versions of our CSS. Okay. Cool. Awesome. So take a break, take a breather. We'll come back in 10 minutes, and the fun will really begin. Okay, we're back. We're back. Cool. So we've got valid HTML. That's great. So the next thing we need to do is start thinking about responsiveness from the start. So it used to be we could just kind of build our applications and kind of more or less assume that by and large, if someone were to land on whatever app or page we're building, it will be on a desktop with a fair bit of screen real estate. We can no longer assume that. In fact, for a lot of applications, the number one place or the most frequent place they're going to arrive at using is their mobile, right? So we need to set the viewport meta element. So let's go over here after we open up the title. We've got our character encoding. We've set our base language up here. So let's go ahead and add another meta tag for viewport. Meta, and the name of this one is equal to viewport. And the content is equal to, so the width of the screen is equal to the device dash width. And there's a comma to separate another, and we're also going to make sure that if there's any scaling that has been done, we set that back to 1. I'll use XML style empty elements. Is that big enough at the back? Is that the code large enough? Boost it up a bit? You're okay? Up a bit more? Okay. Yeah, I'm always mindful of that. Here you go. Cool. So this is the honesty tag. So what we're saying is to the device, look, don't stop pretending. I know you're a really cool iPhone 6 or whatever, Google Pixel. That's great. You can cram how many thousands of pixels into a small screen, whatever. Be honest about how many CSS pixels wide the screen is, so that we can generate text and things that are readable. For example, so before I upload this, so we'll take a look at this. You can use the inspector here, and you can click on the mobile. Is my page going to come in? No page for me? Oh, maybe I took it down. Oh, hold on a sec. Let's chuck it up there. It should, right. So you can do that, drag it over, and just hit upload. Let's try again. There we go. So there's a responsive view here. We can change this. Let's say let's take a look at the iPhone 6 there. Right, that's pretty tough to. Did it have the? Nope, there's no. So there's not there yet. So that's pretty tough. So let's see if we can get this to. It's basically pretending it's a desktop. So let's go and change that. We'll add this viewport file save. I'll put this up to the server, and we'll take a look again. You see immediately is much more readable, right? It stops pretending to be a desktop machine. So in landscape view, this is not working. There we go. You can't see the little landscape view. It's certainly easy to read. Let's try the Nexus 6. Much easier to read. Okay, cool. Let's go back to our code now. That's so. Whoops, this is responsiveness. Put that under step 2. Okay, now we're going to talk about Eric Meyer's CSS reset. So if you, depending on the project you're working on, you may want to take full control of the rendering of every single HTML element that you're going to throw at this user interface. So you may want to, maybe you're developing something for a very specific user agent. It might be for a game. You might be doing it for a I don't know, a console, a gaming console with that's rendering something in HTML. You may be doing it, who knows, for a 4K TV. You may be doing an interface that's going to be rendered on the display on a gasoline pump. Who knows what you're going to do? But in some instances, you don't want to make any assumptions whatsoever about how anything's going to be rendered. So you want to effectively blow away all of the default rendering by the user agent. It's almost as if your page is starting in plain text. That's called a reset. That's really, really hardcore, but it may be what you need to do for a given project. So to do that, let's go ahead and grab the Eric Meyer's reset. So if you just type into the search engine reset CSS, he will be the first hit that comes up. So it's reset CSS by Eric Meyer. So this effectively nulls out the rendering of anything. Gets rid of bullet marks, list markers. It gets rid of that kind of visual hierarchy with headings, any kind of borders, margins, padding, everything. Just so your document basically is just plain text with no kind of white space around anything, right? This might be helpful. There's times when this kind of heavy-handedness with resets is a good idea. So we'll copy this to our clipboard here, right down to the last rule, which is the table. So copy that. We'll go and create the reset in here. So we'll go into our code editor, create a new file. We'll paste our code. Thanks. Leave the attribution at the top. Even though it's public domain, that's good manners. Okay. We'll go File, Save As. We'll put it in the CSS directory, and we'll call it reset.css. As soon as you do that, the MIME type, the code editor realizes it's CSS, and you get all that great code coloring. Cool. Let's bolt this on. Let's attach it. So let's go in here at line 10 or so, add a link element. A relative path here. And I don't need the media attribute. I really, with reset, I shouldn't even really assume whether it's there is no assumption. It could be we're resetting all the styles, so we don't know what is it a screen, is it am I resetting? I'm resetting all the styles for print and everything, so you don't need to put the media attribute. So bolt this together here. Now we'll have to upload both the CSS, the reset CSS, and the revised index page to the server to see the results. So this goes up, upload this thing here, and upload reset to the server as well. I'm going to turn this off for now, reload the page and watch, and nothing. No, for whatever reason, my HTML didn't go up. If it didn't work, check that your page didn't go. I didn't save it. I uploaded it. The page still had pending unsaved changes. Catch every time. So file save, then upload. So I'll go up one directory. And the reset page should look like that. Completely blown away. All H1s, H2s, all the same. Everything renders the same. Right? Now it's up to you to build. Your CSS now is going to be a lot more comprehensive. You've got to address every element in the HTML element set, right? And you've even got to consider elements that you may not be using in your user interface in case someone adds to the markup. You've got to be prepared for that. So this is really, really, it's like I said, this is hardcore, but it may be the tool for the job, depending on what you're doing. You may not want to make any assumptions about how anything's rendered. Reset is then for you. Okay? So be mindful of, are we blowing away all those default styles, or are we just trying to kind of make them the same and leave the ones that are kind of sort of make sense, and make sure, like, maybe we just want our H1s across all platforms to be the same size, or our H2s and lists and things like that. So are we trying to like normalize everything, or are we trying to just blow it all away? Quite different. Okay, so let's if we want to say, well, this is a bit hardcore, let's comment this out. So commenting this out in Atom, most code editors have this. I can just put the cursor on any line of this here, and I can hit Control right-leaning slash, and it will comment that out for me. On Mac, it would be Command right-leaning slash in Atom. Using another code editor, most of them are going to have a shortcut key for comment, uncomment, a line of code. So let's comment that out. Let's get normalized instead. Okay, so let's go to, you can copy this URL from the code here. I pasted that in there for you. Let's open up there we go. We are at version, so this is an alternative to CSS resets. I don't know if I entirely, it is an alternative, but I think that in some instances a reset might be the right way to go, right? But in a lot of, for the most part, it's better, or it takes a little less upfront work to normalize. So what normalize does, it just says, let's make all H1s render the same, H2s, H3s, paragraphs, block quotes, quote elements, lists, form elements. So it just kind of makes everything the same, just like we talked about this primer, right? It just sets that stage so that we can paint happily away with get away with one or two coats, and we're good to go. So this is very common. So go ahead and download version 5. You click on that, you'll get the normalized.css. We can save this with a Control-S or Command-S on Mac. Put this into the CSS right beside the reset and the base. And let's check it out. Now let's link it. So somewhere around about line 12. So we're going to backtrack. We're not going to reset. We're going to normalize instead. You do one or the other. You don't do both. And a word of caution. I see this again and again. If you're using a CSS framework like Bootstrap by Twitter, which is very common, there's all kinds of CSS frameworks. Very often they will build in reset or normalize. You don't normalize and then add a framework, right? You're just adding additional overhead for the CSS rendering engine. Okay, frameworks include these things, right? And usually they include normalize because it's why reinvent the wheel, right? There's a lot of great, very smart people who've been working on normalize and reset for a very long time. Just use it. It's licensed for commercial and private use through the public domain. Off you go. So save this. So now we have to make sure that those are up on the server. We need the index and the normalize also must go up. So it has to be on. So verify that that's on the server. Then we'll take a look at the difference here. Oops. Okay. If normalize is working, it'll look quite different than reset. You'll get a sans serif font by default. You'll notice that the H1 is indeed looks like an H1. The text is jammed right up against the side of the page. The small is still smaller than the paragraph at the bottom here, so this attribution. Paragraphs still have, headers still have margins around the top and bottom. Paragraphs still have, and this will look pretty much the same no matter where you go. Like, go ahead, you don't believe me, copy the URL here. Open up Firefox, open up IE. Minus some screen zoom. There you go. Compare the two. Once you get the word wrap the same, pretty close. Right? Pull up any browser side by side. If you do see any differences, it's going to be awfully minute, and I'd be very surprised if you can in fact point them out and get anyone to notice them. Let's fire up Firefox. This is what we want. I don't want to have to write my CSS 3 times. I don't want to have to write one for Linux, one for Mac versions of Firefox, and one for... I don't want that. I don't want to have to cobble together CSS for the Chrome on an Android machine and Chrome on an iOS machine. I want the same, right? Life's hard enough sometimes. Let's not make it more complicated. So there you go. That's definitely what you want to do. 9.5 times out of 10. This is normalize is the best way to kind of get that primer on the wall, and off we go. We can go ahead confidently with our mobile browser. Yeah, let's try this. Let's see what our mobile browser looks like. So go ahead, point your browser on your phone. I'll plug this thing in here. You won't be able to see this on the screencast, unfortunately. Hopefully we can get it pulling up here. Maybe not. No. Come on. This dongle's a little bit, it's been abused. God, Yes, I get a new one. Come on. Oh, there's a bad connection on here. Ah, what a pain. Or maybe it's the fact that the battery's on. Maybe I'm on battery saver mode. It doesn't have enough power to output externally. No. Ah, used to work. Come on. I don't think so. Bummer. Oh well. Let's see if comp 1054. They don't make it easy by making a short URL for slash. Anyway, no, it's not going to come up on the screen. All right. Fine, be that way. But anyway, I'm not sure if you can see that there, but there's my group. I encourage you on your phone to download Chrome. If you're on iOS, download Chrome, download Firefox, download Opera. If you're on Android, Firefox, Chrome. Don't just stick with the default Android browser, the stock browser that the manufacturer sends with you. If you're on a pure Android experience like Google, like a Nexus or a one of the new Pixels, I think the stock browser is pretty much Chrome, but some of the other manufacturers they kind of monkey with it a little bit, for lack of a better word. So get Chrome on the machine on your mobile device. Cool. Normalize. New dongle for me. Step 4, upload local files. Yeah, we've done that. Add the primary style sheet. Okay, so let's look at, we already have here, we have a base.css, so let's link that one. No, not href. Rel equal same style sheet. Let's bolt that thing together. Base should already be uploaded when you first threw all those files up there. Let's take a look and see what happens here. Nothing. Yep. And sure enough, base is there. Weird. All right, let's take a look at base. There are a total of 5 errors in base.css. Okay. Let's take a look at our there is a validator offered by the W3. It's called Jigsaw. So here's a link. It's jigsaw.w3.org/css-validator. Let's try this crazy thing out. It'll look awfully similar to your HTML validator. Okay. I'll upload base.css. and see what it has to say about my Scott's. Oh, there you go. Always a good idea to validate your CSS. Once you've validated your HTML, right? This is a quality assurance check that you should do prior to certainly to moving a site from a development point into a staging or a production kind of environment where the public's going to use it. You should validate. Now, validation isn't a goal in and of it to itself. You may have specific CSS properties that you know are not valid, right? You may be targeting like some specific filters on a Microsoft browser. You know those are going to fail, but do it knowingly. Know that those are invalid, but you're going to use them anyway. This will help catch simple syntax errors. So try and see if you can get a valid piece of CSS. There are 5 problems. Try and find them. Go. Fix my awful CSS. You've got them all. Help your friends. Does my CSS suck or what?
That's just terrible. That's shameful.
I should feel shame.
Yes, you should. It's not a bad HTML. Our CSS is kind of
Even worse than my HTML.
The problem with CSS is CSS errors are worse. They're less common than more of the problems are the HTML, but they're worse in the sense that they're more insidious. Right? Because if you have CSS problems, the browser will try its best to parse and interpret the CSS and render the page. This is by design, right? Browsers are meant to be to fail, what's called fail gracefully. If browsers suffered a fatal error every time they encountered a CSS syntax error, we wouldn't have the internet. The open web would not be here, right? Because there are so many, people make so many errors. The browsers are built to be very accommodating, and they say, well, I can't figure out that rule, or that rule, something's wrong with that. I'll just move on to the next one, right? The idea is they're built to render at all costs something intelligible, at least present the HTML in a usable way. So the problem is that you don't get any really useful error messages from the CSS. It's not the same, and it's certainly not the same as, you know, say you're typing some code in PHP. You'll get a syntax error. It'll fail. It won't render the HTML, and you'll get a line number and a column number, and some maybe even a link to the documentation. So CSS is tough. Are we set? Did everyone get green lights in their CSS? I'll show you what I did. All right, the first one's really sneaky. And I guess technically it's not really an error, so maybe I'm not being fair. So if you look at the HTML, you see this here? Character encoding. It is a very, very good idea to do the same thing in CSS. You may be using CSS to render content using the content property, right? So how this looks, you do something called like this: act charset. And it's just like UTF-8. This is a really good idea. What I've provided for you is it's a really interesting article. Did I put the charset rule? Character encoding? Oh, I didn't. No, I'll post it. There's a really great little article on character encoding in CSS and why it's a good idea at MDN. So I'll put that on your Blackboard shelf. But really, if you want, if the CSS, put it in there because you never know when someone else might be using CSS to render textual content. And that character set, you want access to the Unicode range of characters, right? You don't want tofu on the page. You guys ever heard of tofu? Not like the tofu you eat. Tofu, you know those little squares that you see on a page, or like when something doesn't render properly, instead of characters, those little blocks, they're called tofu. You do, right? You don't want tofu. I mean, maybe you do. You don't want it in your HTML or CSS, right? So anyway, that's the first one. Next thing is formatting. That won't cause an error. Formatting actually won't cause an error in the validation because browsers ignore whitespace in both HTML and CSS. The formatting is for you, the developer and the developer team, right? To make sense of. Now, in some languages, formatting actually becomes a syntax construct. If you've ever written anything in Ruby, right? If your formatting is incorrect, your code is broken. The formatting actually entails or communicates nested structures. So if you ever get a chance to do a little bit of work in Ruby, do it. It'll make you a better developer. It's really cool. I've tried Ruby. It's really hard. I found it really, really a hard mental shift to make. It's quite different. But it really does force you to think. So in here, let's change. I'm going to set the preferences up to see just how bad my formatting really is. And let's see. Let's show invisibles. And let's set the tab type to hard tabs. Can you see those tab characters? Not only have I made a mess of the formatting, I've also interchangeably used tabs and spaces for my formatting. So if you turn on invisibles, you'll see what a terrible mess I've made of this. It's no good. So I'm not really going to argue about whether you use two spaces, whether you set your code editor up to use two spaces when you hit tab, or four, or you use a hard tab. I'm not going to make that judgment. You choose what's right for you. We could argue forever about hard tabs versus spaces as formatting, but be consistent, right? So for example, I like the hard tab, but I only need one hard tab stop here, right? This is 3 spaces. That's no good. Oops. Be proud of your code, right? Take ownership. Be proud of it. This is you're craftspeople now, right? This is something that you should really take to heart. Make your code beautiful. Cool. Next one is we're missing a brace to close out this rule here. We're missing the next one is we're missing a dash between background and color. Background is a property. It's shorthand, but we need the dash there. The next one is here. Right? What happens with CSS is this declaration now becomes margin 50 pixel auto padding 5%. So neither the margin nor the padding work. Both lines fail. You must make sure, this is a very, very common error, make sure to end every declaration with that semicolon. You don't technically have to put this one at the end for your last one. I encourage you to do it. You'll get burned. You will add more to it and then stuff will break and you'll be, what happened? It looks perfect. Just get in the habit. This doesn't do any harm. Put a trailing semicolon after every declaration. Just do it. Okay? Cool. Line 12, that's not a brace, obviously. Right? And here, any of you guys, I'm really bad with my I's and E's. E's and I's. I before, what is it? How does it go? I before E except after C. Is that how it goes? Except if it's height. Right? There's always more like exceptions than there are rules in English. English is a terrible language, actually. In terms of being any kind of logical structure, it's a mess. Kind of like my CSS. So there you go. That should do it. Save that. Let's see what the validation service sees here. There's no, they don't have the simple, you have to go back and. One error. Property background. Oh. I spelled it Canadian. Formatting. See, it didn't capture the formatting. It doesn't care. There you go. CSS validated to level 3. Cool. That's what you want. Again, some of the CSS you're going to use is not all going to be valid. It doesn't mean it's wrong, but this is a really good tool for you. It will really help you. Just make sure you've got all the basic stuff with your CSS under control. Awesome. All right, that's good. Let's go back here. We are now on step 5B. We've done that. We already did the viewport tag. I got my steps wrong here. No, we already dealt that right away. We got the responsiveness on step 2. So actually, step 6, we've done this. Step 6B, investigate the mobile preview tools in a variety of browsers. So let's take a look at, so here of course we have, where's my page? So right click here, hit inspect. This is, so then we use the little button here, and you can obviously change things because it does matter. I guess I should upload my fixed, my repaired CSS, eh? Go ahead and upload the fixed base.css. Why is my base.css not rendering? Is something wrong? Base.css? Probably didn't save my changes. Oh, I didn't save that, maybe? Page. I'm not getting my CSS to render for a reason. No. Huh. Oh, there we go. Took a little bit of time. That's weird. All right, so once your base CSS starts rendering, it should look like that. Might be a bit of a lag with Azure, pumping that up. So if you hit the inspect, then we've got, and we can, you can actually, you can edit this list if you have a device here and you know what some of these, you can add a custom device in terms of mobile. I mean, this is a pretty good list here. But you can add a custom device, give it a name, even talk about pixel device ratio. Depending on so how many PPI pixels per inch are crammed into one CSS pixel, you would put in there. If there's a user agent string that the browser on that device will use to identify itself, you may need to enter it in here, right? Is it a mobile or a desktop user agent, so on and so forth. So you can craft your own if it doesn't. That's pretty cool. Pretty neat. Let's go take a look at Firefox. See what they're doing these days with. So here's the responsive design mode. Once you hit, and you can change this to, so it goes up on the sidebar here as well. Right? Most of them are pretty much the same. Oh, I broke something. Oh, this is responsive design mode. Put this up on the sidebar here. So this is interesting. It has a kind of preset dimensions instead of listing devices, which is interesting. You can rotate the device. Simulate touch events. If touch event listed had been added earlier, the page needs to be reloaded. That's cool. Take a screenshot. That's cool. You can enter a custom user agent string, or you can leave them out. So pretty neat. Let's take a look at IE. You might have Edge on your machine. This does not have Edge. So for IE, you use F12 for the developer tools. I'm sure it's the same in Edge. We can change the rendering mode for Edge from Edge, which is IE10, IE9, IE8, IE7, IE5. Ooh. Okay. In terms of responsiveness, it's under UI responsiveness. Oh, that's not what I'm looking for. No. DOM Explorer console. I don't seem to have emulation. There it is. Browser profile desktop. Windows Phone. That's all you get. That's some value in that. There's what Windows Phone is going to look like, right? Now, I know a few people who have Windows. Does anyone know anyone with Windows Phone? Does anyone have a Windows Phone running Windows Mobile? I don't actually think it's a bad platform. I've used it a few times. I think it's pretty good. Those who like it actually really enjoy it. They really like it a lot. The problem with the Windows Phone, and time will tell if this comes around, but the problem is they didn't really get developers on board for their App Store, and so there just isn't that wealth of apps available to Windows Phone users, and I think that's one of the reasons why. It's one of the reasons that that BlackBerry suffered as well. They didn't make inroads with the developers, so developers for apps didn't get on board the platform, and as a result, the third-party software offerings were just not there. And so at the end of the day, one of the lessons BlackBerry learned was you have to treat developers as users too, right? If you don't get them on board, they're not going to want to play along, right? So, but anyway, if you get a chance, if you have someone check out their phone. The Windows Phone is actually pretty neat. It's actually a pretty neat mobile platform. But if you're developing an app, a web/mobile app for Windows, yes, this is fine. But if that's actually your project, you will want to get real hardware. Like you will not. Emulation is fine, but you actually will want to get real stuff. Yeah. You're having trouble with the base, the rendering of this?
No, I just thought that maybe we went to Meta.
Oh, okay. No. Okay, cool. So that's okay. So now we've taken a look at this here. This is all done. Also, be aware, using these browser tools for emulation is just that. Emulating is not the real thing. You may see things on the real device that do not come up on the emulator. So if it's mission critical that you're addressing, say you're building, say you're working at a bank and you're building one of the online banking tools, and your user base consists of a huge number of people running. You look at your user stats, and you know that there's a huge number of people running Samsung Galaxy phones. Get them. Get the devices so your dev team has them, right? So emulation is fine it's the economical way to do it, but if you have a user group that you really want to target, you may consider getting the physical device in your office. Okay. Let's have here. What time is it? 1:04. Why don't we take a quick break here? We'll come back and we'll take a look at some of the crazy things we can do with Internet Explorer. And this will be useful for you because sometimes older versions of IE tend to linger a little bit. And so it's great that you guys have edge on your machines, but you'll be surprised. You bring up your traffic analysis, your traffic stats, and you'll be like, really? There's people with IE8 hitting my website? Yep. You might even see the odd IE7, right? Sometimes maybe it's a negligible portion of your audience, but maybe it's large enough that you need to consider it. We'll teach you how to handle that, how to capture that, so it doesn't cause you all kinds of pain and consternation. So we'll take a 5-minute break. Just get outside and stretch, move your legs, make the blood flowing. We'll come back. I'll show you conditional comments and IE rendering modes. Okay. Cool. Then we'll pretty much be done. I'll give you a little bit of a challenge, and we'll be done for the day. Just a bit of process here. Okay, so one of the things that's really important is that Internet Explorer, and by that, when I talk about IE, I talk about Edge inclusively. We want to make sure that your application does not render in an older, they have a view, it's not just simply quirks and standards mode, but they have, Internet Explorer uses something called compatibility mode. So compatibility mode is where it looks at your HTML and your CSS and says, I'm not sure if this is up to snuff. So what I'll do is I'll it's kind of like a pseudo quirks mode. Like it'll be very forgiving with your CSS, and it's almost like it's expecting there to be problems. And as such, you can get kind of a little bit of weirdness, say, in the way it renders in the page. So if we go to IE, for example, and you can see when you click here, I'll close out here. So you enter the developer tools in IE with F12, and this is the rendering mode here, right? So there doesn't seem to be any problems at the moment with it's rendering it in Edge mode. I can force that to an older rendering mode like 10, version 10, or 9, for example, right? And that might be helpful because you may have maybe someone's complaining about, look, my application, there's something wrong, I can't log out properly, or I can't, this menu item, I can't see it, so there may be a layering problem or some sort of rendering problem. And so what you want to do is you want to figure out what version of Internet Explorer are they using. They might be using an older version. This allows you to kind of simulate that situation. But if we wanted to sidestep the issue entirely, really, if you're building standards-based CSS, you're using HTML5, you're using modern JavaScript, what we should do is we should really make sure we're using IE in the best mode it's got, the latest rendering mode, and this is very important. So how we can do that? We can basically do something which is the equivalent of an HTTP header. So the HTTP header is something that gets sent from the server to the user agent that's transparent to the end user. There's lots of information. HTTP headers might say send character encoding information. But we can trump all of that, or we can kind of supersede that with HTTP equivalent tags in our markup. So let's force this page, and you want to do that fairly kind of up high here. Let's go right after we set the viewport for responsiveness, and let's add a meta tag up here. And how it works is we want to put in an HTTP header equivalent, or an HTTP equiv is the attribute. And the value looks like this: x-u user agent dash compatible. And the content of this one is IE equal capital Edge. There. So what this does is it forces Internet Explorer and says, hey, I know what I'm doing. I don't care if you find any weirdness in this page. Please give me the latest rendering mode, Edge, on the browser, right? And this gives you kind of the best chance at getting a rendering of the page that is consistent with all of the other platforms. I used to know, I forget. I don't know. Yeah. All I recognize is the UA. That's a good question. I don't know. I'll have to look it up. I'll have to look it up again. There's some great. I've got some links down here. Here's one on. They might have moved this page. They're always moving these things around. Oh, that's on specifying legacy document mode. So if you want, you could specify that IE is in an older mode. You could use this to render it as if it were IE9. So that might be useful for testing purposes. If you're trying to, kind of force no matter, because it's difficult to install multiple versions of IE in Windows. It can be done. I used to do it. It involved a little bit of tomfoolery in the operating system. I've since given up on it. It's not really worth the effort. The dev tools are pretty good now, so you can force that here. Whether or not they tell me exactly what XUA compatible header. What does the X stand for? Now I'm curious. Huh. Defining document compatibility. Interesting. I don't know. I'll have to look at it. Anyway, there's also another down here. There's okay. So what we can also do is the interesting thing about, so now that we've forced IE into its rendering mode, so what we can do, for example, let's step this down to IE8. So watch this. We'll go, we'll upload the index, right? Head over to Internet Explorer this time, reload the page. Maybe I'll have to turn the F12 off, reload it. And there you can see the rendering mode is in 8. So you have control over that. Now we can still override that. Oh, here's the little, this. Oh, it gives us a link via the UXA compatible meta tag. See what they say here. There you go. So there's a link to the document rendering node. That's kind of cool. And they've got another article here at dev. Nope, it just looks like that link is no longer. No, it doesn't help me. Anyway, so I can still force this into edge mode if I want from here, from the dev tools, right? So that all said, the last bit of the equation is, okay, I can force this, I could force the page, even if it is, say, IE10, I can force it into, so edge mode isn't specific to Microsoft Edge, the browser. I could force IE10, for example, into Edge, but it's still IE10. And there may be some other limitations of that browser, which we may want to, you may need to indicate some sort of note or some sort of caution or some sort of other notification to the end user that this particular browser might be an issue for the following reasons. So you may need to do something with your visual styles specifically in IE10 or IE9 or IE8. You might need to. Not often. If you're building things properly and you're rendering it in standards mode, these differences and these nuanced kind of quirks between the browsers, they're becoming less of an issue over time. And in fact, a day will come when I don't need to do this. You won't need to put this in here at all. A day will come and I probably don't need the viewport tag as well. Right? The user agents are getting better all the time. But you may need to do this. You definitely need to do this today. Today, do you need to do this? I'd say you probably should. But ask me in a couple of months, and I might give you a different answer. Things are changing. So let's go ahead. But what if we wanted to target CSS based on IE? And this is something that the IE developers did a very good job of. They recognized that it's very difficult for people. It's not like just on Windows. Oh, I'll just download a fresh copy of my browser. The Internet Explorer is integral to the operating system. So it required some larger system updates to update the browser. So for that reason, IE, they knew that this browser would, for a lot of users, they wouldn't be able to quickly update it to the newer versions. They did. For all the grief we gave them about things like IE6, they fixed it. It's called Edge, right? It's even Internet Explorer 9 and 10 and 11 were great browsers. So, but we can still we can do something really interesting called called conditional comments. So let's just say we want to capture a particular browser. So let's just say we want to capture IE9 if it's less than or equal to IE9. So what I can do is I can do something like this. You put in an HTML comment like so, and then I put in a square bracket, and it has to be the syntax needs to be exactly as you see it on the screen. So remember, we're just using an HTML comment. So why is this so cool? So what happens is the IE series of browsers are they're designed to look for this syntax. So every other browser on the planet sees this, oh, this is the beginning of an HTML comment, and here is the end of an HTML comment. So every other browser will ignore everything you see here highlighted on the screen, because it's just a comment. But IE is looking for this conditional statement. If it sees this, it says, oh, there are some specific instructions here if, and I need to evaluate this, if less than or equal to IE9. So this means if the browser the person's heading this page is IE9 or lower, link this style sheet. This is great because this allows me to put in all the, a series of maybe I need some hacks or some workarounds that I really wouldn't want to serve up to a browser that didn't need it. It might complicate things. It might cause me problems. But I could build on it, and maybe there's a rendering issue that only IE9 and 8 suffer because of some of the newer, more forward-looking CSS I put in here. But I don't. The other browsers are good, so let's just fix something in here. So that's great. So do that. Build in that conditional comment. Now we'll create a style sheet called IE9.css. And in IE9.css, maybe I'll just target the H1 and say color red, just to demonstrate this, right? So we'll save this. I'll put it in my CSS folder, right? I'll call this IE9.css. So I'm isolating, right? I'm not putting hacks or workarounds in my clean, tidy, neat, standards-based CSS. I'm grouping them in its own file specific for this browser, which is great. So save IE9.css with we're just going to modify the H1 to change it to red. I'll save this index. That's cool. So now we'll upload the new refreshed index.html with the conditional comment. I'll also put IE9 into my CSS file. Now let's go over to IE, reload the page. Should be fine, because this is IE, I don't know what version this is, about Internet Explorer. This is, I bet it's 11. 11, this is IE 11. So it ignores that. But what if I change this to 8 and reloaded the page? Nothing. You didn't put it in the folder? It may be a problem. Hold on. Oh, is my path wrong? It is. Ah, thank you. All right. I appreciate that. I was thinking it was another issue. There is a known issue with this, but that would break. So yeah, from here, of course, it's in the CSS folder. Let's put it up there. No, I have to go. Can we get this to work? I'm really hoping. There we go. Right? IE8, IE9, IE10 is good. Right? Maybe we can do something even more fancy. What if I got here and said, okay, let's, what if I said H1 pseudoclass after or before? Let's go before. And I'll put color red, and I'll put con IE. So what I'll do is I'll generate some content before the H1 if it's IE9 or lower, and I'll put a little in red. I'll put this a little piece of text before the H1 pseudo element before. I don't know if this will work. I don't know if would IE9 like that pseudo element. I'm not sure. We'll try. I have to upload IE9. Reload the page. Okay, IE9 does the before pseudo element, but IE8 doesn't. Right? Oh, yes. There's the conditional comment right there. So LTE, less than or equal to. You could say greater than or equal to, or you can just say less than, greater than, or you can just say if IE9. In this case, that might be the case because I'm just using a piece of CSS for IE9. Right? There's a great article here on this stuff here from quirksmode.org on conditional comments. I'll show you that. And here is all the different syntax variations. Oh. Right. All the various permutations of this crazy thing. If not IE. Interesting. There you go. The syntax has to be exactly this. It's not the place for creativity. If IE does not see exactly and precisely this syntax, it's not going to work. Okay, so that's the link for this article here is right here at Online 28. So I can do the same for IE8, IE9, and IE10, right? I won't do it now. And we've taken a look at the browser tools as well, right? Cool. So that all said, that's the end of my crazy lesson for the day. So here's your lab. So lab 3 is you pull down this index file here, and here's the PDF. What I want you to do is apply the reset to this index page. Take a look at it. Comment it out, right? Put it up on your server if you can. Take a look at it and see how it looks differently with the normalize. And then I want you to add conditional comments that target IE7. And I want you to add an IE7 file that does these visual changes. See if you can get IE to render this way. If you're on a Mac, well, post it to Azure and borrow your friend's machine. Right? No one's just, work together. And then I want you to build an IE conditional comment that targets IE 8 and 9 only. Only 8 and 9. And then I want you to do change the background color. and try and see if you can get it to work. Okay? So submit your link. If you don't have Azure up and running, that's okay. You could zip up the file, put it into Blackboard. If you do, send me a URL. Okay, that's cool. Read chapter 20. There's a great chapter of testing and debugging web pages. There's all the stuff I talked about, and there's some even more really cool tools in your textbook. Read that. There's a quick quiz on that. And here's a bunch of links here. Take a look at this stuff. Take a look at the reset. Glance that. There's a link to the validation service, the Jigsaw. Here's a look at the stat counter global stats for browsers. So a really useful tool. In case you wondered where things were at these days. You wonder why I use Chrome as the go-to browser? Well, that's where we're at, right? So it's certainly head and shoulders above all of these here. The Samsung Internet, they've got their own, probably based on Chrome. Edge, right? Browser market, operating system market share. Where's Windows 10? Blue. There's Windows 10. And Windows 10 and iOS are about tied. Who knew? That's interesting. Windows 7, you can see that on a downward trajectory, right? But still more people on this machine here is Windows 7. This is an enterprise, right? So you should be mindful of that. And Android on an upward trajectory. Hardly any surprise. Cool. So that's good. Some other IE conditional comments. Here's the link. I think that goes to the Quirks Mode article. Here's an article from the Microsoft Developer Network. It's good to get it from the horse's mouth sometimes. Here's a good link on if you want to learn more about the Chrome Dev Tools. We've kind of, there is so much stuff there. I mean, there is so much. If you're wondering, how can I kind of figure out how to optimize this, that, and the other thing, there are tools in here to simulate things like bandwidth speed, wireless connection. You can watch as these resources come in and see where you're bleeding bandwidth. Is there a big image, a background image that's coming in and eating up all my bandwidth, and what's holding up my page? All kinds of great tools there. The Firefox developer tools too. All kinds of incredible stuff by MDN. What a great organization. All this stuff is free. It's just yours. Have it. Enjoy. Cool. All right. Thanks for playing my game. Thanks for coming out. If you've got some trouble, you're still wrestling with Azure or getting an Imagine account hooked up, so you need send me an email. We'll connect maybe during my regular office hours. They're posted here, or we'll create another time. I want to make sure you're plugged in and you have access to Azure because that's really important. Okay. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Any thoughts exercises due tonight?
Yeah, get that done tonight by midnight, so you can do it now. If you want to take it home, chip away at it. I can hang out for the next few minutes if you want.
Did you want a zip file as well?
No, if you're giving me the URL, send me the URL. If you don't have access to, if you couldn't get it up on Azure today, zip it up and dump it in there. Right?
I just have a question about the
Yep.
just commented every variable. How you done? What is it? How you done with concept? Just one function like in JavaScript and another one. Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm just creating something model window. So as you know, you click enter and it just opens the big window. We should go pulling up the menu ID. And then slider, so this should be like it should be red. Oh, thank you. I did this. Oh, so this is yours.
I did it from scratch.
Oh, okay. Yeah, good. Yeah, something like this.
Oh, that's right.
There
might also be a test
yeah. Yeah. When you click on it, just open this big window. And when
Yeah,
you click
because
on
you're
the
using file protocol to make sure I think it's something that. There's an article on that.
Yeah.
I used to teach all of these locally, and then they made a change which made it so that the developer tools didn't work unless you pulled it down over HTTP. We just see.
Wow. Okay.
You're in that one too?
You picked a really strange configuration.
Are you in the online course?
I think that might be the issue.
Usually they're doing like,
Let me just see if I can.
no, not in class. I'm on online, mine's due Wednesday.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe it's maybe I put that up here on Blackboard. Oh, here. So yeah, they're trying to phase this out. As a browser IE10, they were encouraged to use feature detection instead of trying to identify a specific browser, which we haven't talked about feature detection. We will, but there was a warning.
I just want to make sure that I'm able to check that it's actually working instead of just submitting wonderful screen.
Yeah. Do you have access to? Have you connected with your DreamHost server?
Last semester once.
Yeah.
But I can't recall how to do that or.
No. Do you?
Or
Yeah, we used to use FTP. Same thing. They gave you an address. It's like GC student number, something like that. If you search DreamHost in your student email, you might find the credentials are there. You could put it up there, just like you used to. Under there? Okay, so great. So this is Okay, so the host is Computer Studies, and that's your username. So now to check it out, the URL is this
Yeah, sure.
You got a lot more stuff on Blackboard than me.
I enjoyed speaking.
Smoking beers. I got lots of
Well,
that.
I need to go.
So what's with the paint?
Well, one of the jobs with building web apps is you have to it's kind of like painting in the sense that most of the work is
Normalized.
Yes.
So I like to use sometimes I like to use these metaphors.
That's cool. Yeah, that's cool.
So there's a number of things like mostly, we spent a whole class even doing it, touching the stuff we're supposed to touch. Because it takes that much
Just
time.
covering the conceptuals.
Make sure everything's prepared for the work to do it
Yeah.
properly.
Cool.
Yeah, so they like that. You know what? I'll stand on my head. That's what it takes to get people to.
Well, get people interested.
I see that's important.
If they're not engaged, they're not going to catch any of it.
It's hard enough.
That's a great metaphor.
No, I mean, it's great too, but the internal everything still works. Up to stock. Oh man, I'm ready to find this server at home. Screen doesn't
I
have
do a lot of
alert.
verbal analogy, but I don't tend to use props. I should.
Yeah, you should,
I
Dennis.
should.
You got
I should.
more.
I should. I should bring props.
Actually, you're pretty charismatic, so it kind of works out.
Props.
Are we gonna
Hey,
take
you
You got a cool T-shirt.
I do the
That's a
T-shirt
prop.
thing. I do the
That's a
T-shirt
prop.
thing. It is.
That counts.
It is.
But
Yeah.
you stopped wearing different t-shirts, so we can't keep making stuff.
Well, I ran out. Seen some of you guys for like 3 years now.
Yeah.
I ran out of changes in shirts. Laundry. What, I was supposed to wash them?
That smell.
You're talking to a computer guy here.
Okay.
That's why he opens the doors. Kenzie makes me wash my clothes, so it doesn't work
Oh,
out.
cool. Bless you. Yeah. That's about right.
It's not really a bad thing.
Nah.
It's like considered the odd laundry day.
Variety is the spice of life, and how do you know you're spicy if you don't have an odor?
You know when you get that slight whiff of like body odor or something, you smell it, and you're like, God, I smell that again.
Yeah. Is that what that was? Oh no. Yeah.
Oh dear Lord.
Not good.
Hey, come over here and smell this.
Well, I'm serious though. You got lots of stuff on Blackboard. If you ever want to teach my class, you just
All right.
feel free.
All right.
Should I just quit these things?
Oh, you know what?
Oh man, I know majority of this.
I gotta pause it.